I want to announce that due to COVID-19, some commissioners, staff, and public are attending remotely via Zoom, by phone, or on site. All participants joining by phone should mute their phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, please make sure you announce yourself by your name and title every time you speak so the public that is observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and its current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General's office. Due to COVID-19 requirements, the public is allowed to participate by Zoom or submit comments by email prior to the meeting, and those comments will be included in the record of the meeting. The public also have an opportunity to provide brief comments from the lobby of the Mental Office building. Clerk, please call this meeting to order.
Good evening. Thank you. Roll call. Burroughs.
Aye. Here.
Townsend.
Here.
McKiernan.
Here.
Ramirez.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Kane. Markley.
Here.
Stites.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Bynum.
Here.
Garner.
Here. Thank you. The invocation is going to be given by Commissioner O'Hare Johnson, Faith Deliverance Church of God in Christ, immediately followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Almighty God, what a privilege and an honor it is to come before you this evening as commission and mayor. We welcome your presence, we welcome your wisdom and your direction. We gather here to move together with a common goal of doing what is best and right for our city and our county that we are blessed to call home. Anoint us as mayor and commission to have ears to listen to the citizens that we serve, and grant us the wisdom and courage to act in the name of justice and righteousness for all Wyandotte Countyans. Finally, Lord, bless all of the great diverse tapestry of citizens that live here in Wyandotte County, that call this place home. These things we pray in the name of Christ our Lord. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
America. And
to the republic
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson, for providing that invocation this evening. I'll now ask the clerk if there are any revisions to tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, a blue sheet was issued this evening modifying item number 3 on tonight's consent agenda, which includes the naming of additional streets to the original vision statement. That includes all the changes on tonight's blue sheet, Mayor Garner.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is the mayor's agenda, and is a public forum allowing citizens to express concerns and present solutions relating solely and specifically to the unified government span of interest and control. I will now open the public comment. I ask the clerk to provide a synopsis indicating how many comments were submitted to the clerk's office.
Mayor, the clerk's office did not receive any requests online, but we do have a list of people in our lobby this evening that we're going to present now.
I'll ask those that are presenting that staff will call your name to come to the podium in order that you have signed up. Once you've been acknowledged, we ask that you provide your name and city of residency for the record. 30 minutes will be allocated for those appearing in the lobby to speak. You'll be given 2 minutes to state your comments. Staff will announce that you have 1 minute remaining to give you time to wrap up your comments. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with the rules of procedure, and if remarks are determined to be out of order, I will instruct the speaker to stop making such remarks and declare those comments to be out of order. Derogatory and improper language or actions will not be tolerated whatsoever in this meeting. If you persist with such derogatory statements, you may be asked to leave or your comments will not be entered into the record. I'll turn it over to staff to entertain those wishing to speak in the lobby.
Could we have our first speaker in the lobby, please?
Yes, my name is Deacon Dave Cresswell from St. Patrick's Church.
Go ahead.
You can proceed. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Garner and members of the commission for the privilege to speak this evening. As I said, my name is Deacon Dave Cresswell from St. Patrick's Church. As leaders in our community, our responsibilities include taking action that benefits the community as a whole. I would suggest that allowing Planned Parenthood to set up shop in our community does not benefit our community and is in fact detrimental to our citizens and to the common good. Planned Parenthood, firstly and foremost, destroys the innocent life of an unborn child. There is absolutely no doubt that ultrasound technology undeniably proves that a pregnancy is indeed a living human person prior to living in the outside world. A pregnancy can in no way be labeled as just a mass of cells, and to destroy that life does not come without consequences. The Gabriel Project.
1 minute.
The Gabriel Project and Project Rachel exists specifically to help women that are traumatized by the effects of considering or having an abortion. These women suffer lifelong pain, anxiety, and regret after terminating the life of their child. And additionally, as witnessed in other locations where Planned Parenthood has been allowed to do business, there's also increased in sex trafficking, rape, and domestic violence against women and children. Planned Parenthood's goal is to make revenue off an unwanted pregnancy. And this is the reason why Planned Parenthood intentionally sets up shop in urban lower income areas. Planned Parenthood preys on women that feel that they have nowhere else to turn. They have no interest in the dignity of women or the dignity of the family, and only exist to capitalize on the plight of women in crisis pregnancy. And by allowing Planned Parenthood in Kansas City, the unified government will be enabling the degradation of women. In the argument for Planned Parenthood,
Your time has
say
expired.
Thank you.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Good evening. Thank you for being here, neighbors, and for serving us. Thank you for your prayer. That was heartwarming. Thank you, neighbors, for showing up today. My name is Julie Clemens. I'm a native Kansan. I was born in Topeka in 1962. I'm a resident of Kansas City, and I thank the previous speaker for that synopsis. I agree with everything that he said. I'd like for you to look harshly on this application for business in this town because it's a harsh business to be in. I just wanted to relate to you personally what I have suffered at the hands of Planned Parenthood in my life. I have had the risk of my reputation on television right now. I've had 5 abortions. I've denied my mom and my dad the pleasure of being grandparents, my nieces and nephews, of having cousins.
1 minute.
I've denied myself the pleasure of having children and of having someone to love me. I'm alone. They treated me like a piece of meat. I'm sorry. And every day I think about what I've done, and that will never go away. And I would love it if Wyandotte County could stand up as a shining light and salt in this area of the country and show people that we don't put up with this. We don't murder children here. Thank you for your time. God bless.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Deborah Neeson, and as the pro-life consultant for the Archdiocese of Kansas City and a board member of Wyandotte and Olathe Pregnancy Clinics, I'm here to express my opposition to Planned Parenthood opening a new facility in Kansas City. The gospel of life teaches that every life is a precious gift from God, and that we are all called to defend the life and dignity of all people, especially those who are most vulnerable. As Archbishop Naumann stated in his letter to you, we ask you to use your authority to protect your constituents who find themselves facing an unplanned or challenging pregnancy from becoming prey to organizations that take advantage of and profit from their vulnerable situations. We first want to protect the lives of innocent preborn children that will be put at risk by Planned Parenthood. Abortion always ends the life of a human being, and each of these lives matter and was created by God for a unique purpose to better society. But abortion is not just a religious issue. The right to life is the most fundamental right, without which no other right matters. We also want to protect the lives and dignity of women facing
1 minute.
circumstances. Through our post-abortive ministry, we know how so many women and men deeply regret the loss of their child and how they suffer, often in silence, with the physical and mental health ramifications of their abortion decision. Studies show abortion increases the risk of anxiety, depression, substance abuse, suicide, as well as breast cancer, infertility. Abortion pits the welfare of a mother versus the life of her child and damages the most important unit of our society, the family. Women, families, and our community deserve better than what Planned Parenthood offers. Instead, let's promote the many pregnancy help organizations that support women to choose life for their child and a happy, healthier future for themselves. Finally, we are appalled at the secretive and deceptive tactics that Planned Parenthood is using to open this facility near neighborhoods and a high school. Therefore, as entrusted servants of the public welfare, we ask that you refuse to issue a certificate of occupancy to Planned Parenthood. Thank you so much for your time.
Mr. Mayor and Board of Commissioners, my name's Jean Gowden, and I am the Director of Government Relations with Kansans for Life. I live in Topeka. Kansans for Life strongly encourages the unified government to deny a certificate of occupancy to the Planned Parenthood abortion chain, which appears to be seeking to open a facility at 6013 Leavenworth Road. If Planned Parenthood, the abortion industry's largest franchise, is in fact building a facility through a shell company, this should more than give commissioners pause. It begs the questions: what does Planned Parenthood have to hide? What does it not want the public to know? As you consider this matter, public documents can attest to the fact that Planned Parenthood has been investigated and fined for Medicaid fraud and has a history of health and safety violations and deficiencies. The Unified Government Public Health Department, on the other hand, serves a greater percentage of low-income residents than Planned Parenthood and offers a wide range of healthcare services for the whole family. The majority of abortionists employed by Planned Parenthood are not Kansas residents with ties to the community, but rather circuit riders who leave the state, showing little concern for the welfare or continuity of care of women. Women and children deserve better than what abortion industry giant Planned Parenthood has to offer. Kansans for Life commends Commissioner Stites for his public support of the effort to deny the certificate of occupancy to Planned Parenthood, and we respectfully encourage Mayor Garner and the rest of the Board of Commissioners to join this effort. Thank you for your consideration.
I'm Kevin Braun, and I'm from Kansas City, Kansas. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioner. Thank you for letting me speak on this issue. This evening, I want to share what I believe will happen to both the reputation of Kansas City, Kansas, and you as elected officials if you approve opening a Planned Parenthood abortion clinic. Kansas City, Kansas will no longer be known for our rich cultural history. It will not be known for the Argentine district, the legends, the racetrack, the Memorial Hall, Sporting KC, or the Monarchs. It will be known as the abortion capital of the Midwest. Kansas history on abortion indicates that those seeking abortion will come from all over the world, every U.S. state, every Kansas county. Currently, over 50% of the abortions performed in Kansas are on out-of-state residents. The Schumacher Institute forecasts that going forward, Kansas will be responsible for between 10,000 and 100,000 abortions per year. Many of those potentially in Kansas City, Kansas.
1 minute.
No, this is, you keep yours. Here, you want to listen.
If past abortion statistics indicate the future, 35% will be Black, 35% will be white, 23% will be Hispanic, and 9% will be of other races. Given the actual population by race, abortions will continue to have a drastically higher impact on minorities than whites. That's not the reputation we want for Kansas City, Kansas. Mayor and commissioners, if this moves forward, the 10,000 to 100,000 abortions will continue in your name far after you leave office. This vote will follow you the rest of your life and beyond. I believe this is the most consequential political and personal decision you'll ever make. The reputation of both Kansas City, Kansas, and your reputation as elected officials is in your hands. Given the gravity of the decision you're required to make, I pray that each of you receive divine guidance on your vote. With that stated, I ask that you vote against the opening of this abortion clinic. My prayers are with you.
Here we go.
Good evening. My name is Reverend Nick Blaha. I am the pastor of Christ the King Church and on 53rd Street and Leavenworth Road, 6 blocks from the proposed site for a Planned Parenthood clinic here in Wyandotte County. I strongly urge you, Mayor Garner, and the members of the City Commission to deny the certificate of occupancy to this business at this site or at any other site within your charge. And I thank Commissioner Chuck Stites for his support of these efforts being made to stop this business from returning to our state, to our city. Planned Parenthood wants to open an abortion clinic within walking distance of my church elementary school and Wellborn Elementary School in U.S. School District 500. No child should ever have to wonder why there is a business in her neighborhood that offers to help extinguish the life of a child for money. No child should have to ask the question, why are some babies allowed to be born and others not? This is a business. Planned Parenthood is a business. That
1 minute remaining.
Profits from vulnerable women. Women deserve better. Those here locally and beyond. They deserve our support. We provide that support on our site, a mere 6 blocks from this proposed abortion clinic at the Wyandotte Pregnancy Clinic, where women receive enormous and abundant emotional, tangible, financial, and spiritual support before, during, and after the birth of their child. In contrast, Planned Parenthood takes the life, takes the money, and leaves that woman to her own resources. We know that recently in Washington, D.C., an abortion clinic is pressing criminal charges against sidewalk counselors, heroic people who encourage women to rely on that support. And they also are sued as sidewalk counselors seeking damages for lost revenue. Lost revenue. That's how this organization—
Your time has expired.
These women as a revenue stream.
Good evening. My name is Donna Kelsey, and I want to thank you. Pardon me? Thank you, Mayor Garner and the commissioners for letting us speak. Tonight, I had the privilege of gathering out in the hall with about 60 people here in support of what all of us are asking. Please do not let Planned Parenthood occupy the building at 6013 Leavenworth Road. I have seen the results firsthand of what abortion has done to women, the men and the families of unborn children killed during abortion. I have worked in pregnancy clinics in Wyandotte County since 2007. The trauma afterwards leads to abuse of drugs, alcohol, domestic violence, and often violence against other children that they may have. Why would you want this as commissioners and mayor? Why would you allow this to come to our county? Please protect the lives of the unborn children and their families by not allowing
1 minute
in our county. This community elected you to serve us and to help us improve our county and community. This is also a very moral issue because we are dealing with the killing of unborn children. Can you have this on your conscience that you are part of that action by allowing them to open? Please do not let this happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you for allowing us to speak. I'm Dee Thompson from Kansas City, Kansas. There are many reasons that women choose to abort a child's life. These reasons have existed for thousands of years. Poverty has been in every society, yet many of our greatest leaders, scientists, artists have overcome the lack of physical possessions and other needs to achieve great things. Today, we have crisis pregnancy centers to assist women with more help than ever before. They can have free assistance in pregnancy and after the baby is born. Many people would gladly adopt a baby. A pregnant woman has options that can allow her to choose life for her child. There are many other reasons that a woman chooses death for her child.
1 minute.
I am here because of the possibility of abuse. I was in 12th grade in 1973 the year the Supreme Court legalized abortion. I had abusive parents. I wished I was dead. But today, I am very thankful to be alive. God can take any situation and turn it around. The most depressed person can soon have joy. And these children can also learn to have joy. Please allow the children of Wyandotte County to have a chance to love their life and to be thankful to you for voting no on Planned Parenthood here in Wyandotte County. Thank you very much.
Mayor Garner and commissioners, my name is Ron Kelsey. I'm a proud resident in KCK, where my wife Dawn and I have resided since 2008. We have enjoyed being DOT residents, and we are grateful for the services provided by the unified government. I would also like to sincerely thank each of you for your service to our community. I am the president of Planned Parenthood Exposed, with its campaign to stop Planned Parenthood in KCK. I'm also the president of Kansas City Pregnancy Clinic, which offers life-affirming services and which was started specifically because Planned Parenthood had plans to open a location in Kansas City, Kansas. I would like to thank Mayor Garner for establishing this time for public comment. The topic of extreme importance that I would like to address is Planned Parenthood's new location at 6013 Leavenworth Road. We are asking that a certificate of occupancy be denied to Planned Parenthood or a similar organization. An abortion business is unlike any other business in existence. It is the only business that factually involves the killing of innocent human beings. An abortion business requires a unique response from you elected leaders to establish community values by your actions. Such actions may require creative approaches in dealing with perceived legal constraints. There are also other justifications beyond abortion to warrant denying the certificate of occupancy to Planned Parenthood. I will provide these other justifications to you soon, hopefully in meetings with you. We are grateful to Commissioner Chuck Stites for his opposition to the possibility of an abortion clinic at 6013 Leavenworth Road when he stated, "I support the efforts to prevent the licensing of this type of facility in Wyandotte County."
Your time has expired.
Thank you.
My name is Kathy Castro, and I would like to thank all of you for considering our opinions and thoughts. I would like to say that I just found out this week about this proposed clinic going in, and my home is within 6 miles of this proposed site, and I am quite alarmed at that. Planned Parenthood has a reputation for being in the abortion business, but as a person who works in a middle school, I am here to tell you that that is not the only revenue stream they are after. And they are also trying to stop puberty in girls by giving them estrogen blocking drugs for free without their parents' approval, to help them transition to a different gender. And I think this is wrong. I think that it is in the invocation, we all, I hope, want to see what is best and right happen in Kansas City, Kansas, and in Wyandotte County. And I don't see how the killing of babies or the changing of what God meant for a person to be in their gender is best or right for any person. Thank you for hearing my concerns. I appreciate it.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to address you. My name is Mike Grodoff. I'm a resident of Olathe, Kansas, and I'm a member of the Knights of Columbus. I'm here today to add my voice to the many of this community who oppose the issuing of the certificate of occupancy to the Planned Parenthood facility at 6013 Leavenworth Road. Such facilities promote the killing of the most innocent and vulnerable members of our society. They also ignore the long-term effects of such actions on the physical and mental health of the mother, as well as the mental health of the father and the grandparents of the aborted baby. We must be better than this. We must find alternatives to abortion that protect the fundamental rights, including the fundamental right to life and the long-term health of all involved. I urge you to take a step in that direction by denying the issuance of a certificate of occupancy to the Planned Parenthood facility at 6013 Leavenworth Road. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Howen and I'm from Independence, Missouri. I'm here today to oppose the certificate of occupancy for Planned Parenthood that's been filed by Health Tech LLC. I was looking today, I was kind of curious about Planned Parenthood statistics, and I was looking on their 2020 or 2019-2020 report, and I found some interesting statistics on their pregnancy services. They have provided 354,871 abortions in that last year, and versus only 8,662 prenatal services and 2,667 adoption services. Planned Parenthood likes to say that they support women, but their focus is very much on abortion. Planned Parenthood does abortions in Kansas up to 22 weeks and 6 days. We already have 2 abortion clinics in Kansas City. I actually volunteer 1 day a week outside of one of these abortion clinics to offer hope and alternative services to women seeking abortion. You may not know, but there's very many other clinics that offer services, STD testing, sexual counseling, that are non-abortive. And it's very interesting. In my time on the sidewalk, you would be amazed to see how many people have pain associated with abortion, depression, suicidal thoughts. And I come here today to stand up and say, as a young person, as a youth, that
your time has expired.
Terry Howen, and I want to thank you for allowing us to speak this evening. I especially want to thank all of you for your service, taking your responsibility very soberly and diligently, and trying to protect your city and the residents, and to try to discern what would be the best as we move forward. And I come as a grandmother, a great grandmother, a mother. I'm adopted, and I guess this thing what I'd like to say to you all is it's not too late to consider putting the brakes on opening this facility. These kind of decisions, sometimes you don't get enough information to the very last minute. And a lot of us, you're making a decision for the whole body.
1 minute.
And a lot of us here go stand on the sidewalk and try to help one individual at a time before they step in the doors of Planned Parenthood and change their destiny. They eliminate a life of their child. They have consequences the rest of our lives. We do these as individuals. We are looking to you as the leaders to protect all of us as we move forward as a city so that the doors don't open and we end up with consequences that we look back and we've destroyed perhaps our future one child at a time, one decision at a time, where as you as a body can do so much more to protect us, our children, and the days ahead of us. And I thank you again for the opportunity to be here, but especially for you and the hours that you put forth and the consideration, the sacrifices that you make on the behalf
Your
of all
time
of
has
us.
expired.
Hi, you're going to be happy to hear that I'm not going to talk about the abortion clinic. I'm talking about an apartment complex that is 142 units that is going to be built at the corner of 6th and Central, an already dangerous intersection. This is a high-density apartment complex. I live in Russian Hill. We have support from Strawberry Hill and Polish Hill. We have over 180 signatures protesting this development. These people are coming in and they're robbing the view, and they're robbing the view from people behind them, and they're setting a precedence. They're already requesting a parking variance, which would allow them to have less parking spaces than needed to even cover those in the building. Those people will be parking on the street in a community that does not have room or garages or driveways.
1 minute.
Where homeowners are going to lose the ability to park on their own streets. This is a traffic issue. There will be much more traffic at a dangerous intersection already. They are also going to consider the area blighted so that they can collect public money to support their development and make their millions of dollars. I feel that you as commissioners can support your citizenship. We are the people who sleep in this community at night. And I am asking each and every one of you, the mayor, the commissioners, to stand with your constituents, stand with us and not support this apartment complex. It's being rammed down our throats and we don't want it. It'll ruin the skyline and the flavor and the fabric of our neighborhood. Please support us.
Mayor, commissioners, thanks for this 2 minutes of time. My name is Buck Hessel. I'm her lesser half. We've lived on the Hill quite a long time, and I'm all for development. I really am. Not this, but just not this scale on this tiny, not quite an acre lot. And it's at 6th and Central. It's a terrible corner. They're closing down. They closed down the St. James Bridge to go over to the Missouri side. It's rerouting traffic. It's a mess. And we don't have the money to pay and fix that bridge. So this project should be twice as tall and twice as big, a block west at 7th and Central. It just begs for a nice, big, luxury kind of apartment. So instead of this project, the 505 Central project, instead of a welcoming,
1 minute.
Instead of a welcoming gateway, it will be a barricade to the traffic for the businesses and neighborhoods in our fledgling entertainment district. They never. My other complaint is the developers have treated our neighbors with absolute no respect. They never allowed us to speak at their Zoom presentations. All they did was slowly repeat the same plan at every presentation. Seems a bit autocratic to me. I don't like this neighborhood against developer scenario. Instead of working with us, it seems as though they are just cramming this down our throats. They never reached out to us and introduced themselves and listened to our concerns. I guess we scared them at the first meeting at Chicago's. In closing, we are going to wake up soon after this pandemic of Zoom protocols and say, what the hell?
Your time has expired.
Without this personal touch of real personal meetings, we're going to end up
Sir,
with a
your time
heavily
has
flawed urban
expired.
design. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Sabalka Reback. I was born and raised in this neighborhood where the Planned Parenthood is hoping to open up their doors. I want to tell you that our city, our great city of Kansas City, Kansas, where I grew up, where my husband and I raised our children and sent them to the schools in this neighborhood because we believed in that neighborhood. And when we look at Planned Parenthood and the beginnings of Planned Parenthood, it was started by a woman, Margaret Sanger, who wanted to eliminate the population in the minorities. Kansas City, Kansas is rich in minorities, in a diverse culture that has the ability to bring people together. We shouldn't be opening up something that's going to
1 minute.
kill off part of our community. We should stand together with those agencies like the Kansas City Pregnancy Clinic, the Wyandotte County Pregnancy Clinic, who are really helping these young women to save their babies, to be able to take care of their babies, and to help our community to grow. Thank you.
Mayor, that represents our online or our lobby constituents. We will have 3 people presented now that are online, moving them forward.
Our first speaker is Rose. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Rose Iltz. I live at 506 North 4th Street in Kansas City, Kansas. I wanted to follow up on the 505 Central project and let you know that I am against that project. It's an 8-story high-rise on the bluff that's going to block a lot of people's view coming and going. It's just too big, too high a density. It's going to cause traffic problem, infrastructure issues. They want big tax abatements. I don't know what possible benefit they could have to Strawberry Hill, Russian Hill, Polish Hill. That's just going to be a drag on all of us. It would be great if they would come back with a smaller, more reasonably sized development project. We're all for R5, max of 4 stories, townhouses, something like that. Or like Mr. Hessel said, move it west to 7th Street. Can be as tall as they want. They're not going to block anybody's view there. Also, I just can't help myself. I must say that I am all for the certificate of occupancy for Planned Parenthood on Leavenworth Road. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Louise Lynch. There you go. Go ahead, Ms. Lynch. Ms. Lynch, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I didn't know whether you can hear me. Sorry. I didn't know so many topics were going to be spoken about today, and I just want to first say thank you, Tom Burroughs, for speaking up about revenue neutrality. I'm very happy that you are my commissioner and support that. It means a lot to me as your constituent, and I thank you for doing that, even though you're the Lone Ranger. I also want to say, in regards to this Planned Parenthood, I would like the commissioners to go ahead and approve it, and giving women the chance to decide what happens with their body. But also Planned Parenthood does more than just abortions, and I welcome any kind of health benefit to women that is being given. So I would recommend you go ahead and approve that. But I also want to talk about the BPU pilot program. We need to reduce that immensely. We pay way too much money to that pilot. It needs to be reduced, I would say, more than half to make it affordable for those of us struggling to pay bills. And for those of us who are needing our services and are in risk of having them cut off because too much money is being put towards that bill. That sometimes is the significance of being able to have utilities or not. And if you're on a breathing machine, that's the meaning of life or death. And I strongly urge you to consider all of these things. Thank you.
Our last speaker is Nicole Croson.
Hi, thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for allowing us to speak this evening. I'm a fourth generation DOT. I live in Kansas City, Kansas. My great grandparents built the home I live in. They built homes in my neighborhood and the church where I was married. I just want to speak on the budget a little bit and how our government really needs to practice a zero-based budget. I'm not going to pretend I'm familiar with how it actually works, but I know that there are apps and there are applications, there are professionals that will help with the zero-based budget to budget the money that is currently available to use for amenities and to make improvements to our community without continuing to raise taxes. The pilot program needs to go. It's a way for the UG to deflect blame and ill will to the BPU when actually the BPU gives that money back to the UG. It holds citizens hostage to lose their power for payments in lieu of taxes that citizens should be allowed to vote on. Tax abatements for large stores and box operations need to go. There needs to be a list available for community members to request that information to know what businesses are receiving tax abatements, for how long, and for what that revenue is. They're polluting our air, our soil, our water. They're destroying infrastructure that taxpayers pay for those 10 years, and then a business might leave. So then we get nothing out of that amount of time that they were here that we as taxpayers were paying for those abatements. It's eating up space for public parks and green space. I have nowhere to go in my neighborhood. I have no public park. I have no sidewalk. So I have to push my stroller in the ditch with my daughter. Children walk in a busy street intersection home from school in the ditch with we have no curbs, no sidewalks, no gutters. Our community is more than an industrial hub. And I know that there are creative ways to bring things here for young families to do, to participate in, besides industrial developments in neighborhoods and around our community. Thank you for your time, for listening, and thank you for all the work you do in our community.
Thank you for all those that spoke tonight. I know we're all glad to hear from our constituents, and you'll have more opportunities for those that weren't able to get on tonight in the coming months ahead. I would like to make a note of interest. I know there was a lot of conversation about Planned Parenthood. I will have to know for all those watching that Planned Parenthood and anything dealing with that is not an agenda item for our Unified Governments Commission's discussion tonight. So I did want to make that clear. I'm going to move on to the next item on the mayor's agenda. And I'm asked Mr. Keith Kennedy to come forward. Okay, he's already there. Thank you. It's a proclamation proclaiming April 13th through April 24th as 7 days of kindness. And I'll ask the clerk to read that proclamation.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Keith Kennedy, and I have with me here Mohammed Shadre, and we are members of the board of 7 Days. As you know, 7 Days is an organization that's focused on overcoming hate by promoting kindness and understanding through education and dialogue. Our values are youth development, community connection, discovery, interfaith dialogue, and health and wellness. This organization was founded probably about 7 years ago when our founders' father and son were murdered at the Jewish Community Center, and as well as another individual, Terry Lamano. And so we are honored to be a part of the board and to try to help guide this dialogue that really promotes kindness to try to overcome hate in our world. We have with us tonight a certificate, actually a plaque to thank you for your support. We have a couple of events that are about to kick off. Thank you. One is a breakfast on April 13th at the Church of the Resurrection. And then another is our kindness walk that will be at the Liberty Memorial, where we expect somewhere around 800 to 1,000 people gathering to really talk about kindness and continue the dialogue. So thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for your support. And we hope to see you at one of our events.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And appreciate all that you do. And we'll be getting that proclamation to you in short order.
Thank you.
So thank you. And thank you for the 7 days of kindness. That should be every day. So thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to our third item on the agenda.
Mayor, if I may, should I go ahead and read the proclamation into record first?
You do have the proclamation.
Thank you. Proclamation, whereas 7 days make a ripple change the world, we overcome hate by promoting kindness and understanding through the education and dialogue. And whereas 7 days provides opportunities encouraging all people to participate in activities that promote and practice kindness. Whereas 7 days 2022 will begin its events on Wednesday, April 13th with the Kindness Kickoff Breakfast, a celebration of youth, an announcement of the second annual Ripple of Kindness Award to the Kansas City Royals President Dayton Moore, and conclude with its annual Kindness Walk on Sunday, April 24th at the World War I Museum and Memorial. And whereas 7 days continues with themed days of love, discover others, connect you, go, and onward as we bring people from different faiths and cultures together to overcome hate with acts of kindness. And whereas the memories of three wonderful and unique people, Reed Underwood, Dr. William Corporon, and Terry Lamano, will be honored through kindness and understanding. And whereas we urge all citizens to engage in acts of kindness through the week and remember the events of April 13th, 2014, not only for the losses of that day, but also for the significance of the powerful and enduring vow to overcome hate with kindness. And whereas 7 days expands its acts of compassion, acceptance, and understanding to those who gather. And whereas we fully support and encourage all in Wyandotte County, including residents, businesses, organizations, and visitors, to come together during the 7 days to act more kindly and be more understanding of differences, thereby making the world a better place, one ripple at a time. Now, therefore, I, Tyrone Garner, Mayor, CEO of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, do hereby proclaim April 13th through April 24th as 7 days of kindness in Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas, and urge all citizens to engage in acts of kindness throughout the week and remember the events of April 13, 2014, not only for the losses of that day, but also for the significance of the powerful and enduring vow to overcome hate with kindness. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and seal on the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. Thank you.
Thank you again, and thank you so much. And again, every day, I know we're recognizing these days for kindness, but really every day should be days that we all just as human beings, just rooted in love, just treat each other with love and kindness. So thank you all so much. That takes us to item number 3. It's a presentation regarding an EPA grant opportunities. And I'll recognize a member from the EPA and their representatives to come forward and make their presentation to the commission.
Great. So good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Josh Tapp. I'm the Director for the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs at EPA's Region 7 office in Kansas City. Joining me today for a brief presentation are Emily Wolf from the Metropolitan Energy Center and Hank Chamberlain from the DNC. Thank you for allowing us to speak today. We're going to try to keep our comments to 15 minutes or less, and hopefully maybe leave some time for some questions if you have any. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And next slide, please. All right, so I want to cover 3 things today for you. These are funding and resource opportunities, the American Rescue Plan Act, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and the Justice 40 Initiative. And I'm not overstating this when I say that these are once in a generation funding opportunities. Oh, thank you. And so we're hoping that by sharing this information with the mayor and with all of you today, that that you'll consider taking advantage of the opportunities that are offered here. So next slide, please. Oh, that's me. All right, thank you. With regard to the American Rescue Plan Act, there is $100 million that were made available under this act. The act was signed into law in April of last year, April of 2021. And as you can see there are actually 2 major buckets that fall into that $100 million. The first is the environmental justice, and I'm going to break that down in just a second. The second one is for enhanced air pollution monitoring, and together they make that $100 million. So we'll go to the next slide. So the blue bucket that I showed you for environmental justice is broken down here. And so you can see that for environmental justice grants, there's $16 million available. For DERA, stands for the clean diesel, like clean school buses, $7 million available for that. And I wanted to jump to brownfields because I know that we have a manager in Region 7 that's anxious to talk to you all about the brownfields opportunities. And if you're not familiar, brownfields opportunities help you to clean up sites that have been previously contaminated and then rebuild or redevelop those sites. So looking forward to hopefully having a chance to talk to you about that. You can see also children's health and a number of other things that are moving down the line there. So that's 50 of $100 million that was made available. And we're working now to advertise some of those funds and make them available to our communities in Region 7. Region 7 is Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, and Nebraska. Let me skip now to the bipartisan infrastructure law. This was the law that was signed in November, and where we were talking about $100 million with the American Rescue Plan, we're talking about $1.2 trillion when we're talking about this funding source. It's over 5 years, and so the monies will be spread out over that time. It's not just EPA, right? We have Department of Transportation, Department of Energy, and all the way down Department of Homeland Security, Health and Human Services. Each of those agencies has a portion of these funds and is looking for ways to advertise and award them to communities that are underserved and overburdened. So with regard, just to give you some context, with regard to the EPA funding, that's $75 billion that's made available to us over 5 years. That's almost all exclusively for grant dollars to go out to communities like yours. Our operating budget every year is about $9 billion, and 80% of that, roughly 70 to 80%, goes to our communities. The rest of it is used to operate the agency. This is $75 billion that's available to our communities above and beyond our operating budget. Now, it will be difficult for folks to track what monies are available and when they're going to be available. So we've developed this spreadsheet that we're going to continue to share with our communities. And so what we've done here is we've identified which office at EPA would make the funds available, the type of funds, whether it's clean school bus or drinking water or whatever it might be, a brief description and a place to check that out. The eligible applicants, whether it's nonprofits or whether it's municipal governments, the amount that would be available. And initially that information will start out at the national level. And then as we get more details, we'll break that down. As you can see on the second row there, we broke that down to Kansas is going to get roughly $16 million that they're going to be able to award to their communities. Then you can see the number of awards that are anticipated, the request for application date, and when we intend to award these monies. We will continue to provide this to the unified government so that you have this information. But all of these monies, almost exclusively, require a grant application to come in. These aren't monies that would just naturally trickle down to the unified government. So the third thing that I want to mention to you is a program, an initiative that was put out by the White House called Justice 40. And in Justice 40, the Biden administration requested that 13 federal agencies encompassing over 379 support programs direct 40% of the overall benefits to disadvantaged communities. Now, these programs cover clean energy, energy efficiency, affordable and sustainable housing, training and workforce development, and you can kind of see all the way through down to clean water infrastructure. So again, this is a whole of government approach. It's not just EPA, and so very valuable to our communities in need, and a very powerful commitment on behalf of the federal government. I want to make sure that you are aware of that. We will continue to track Justice 40, not only for our commitments at EPA, but also for other agencies in the Kansas City area as well. So there's my contact information. And if I could leave you with just one message to remember, this presentation is about opportunity and need. And certainly you all serve constituents in your area that have a definite need for some of these funds. And so I'd encourage you to consider the opportunities that are offered here, and feel free to contact us if you have questions. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes, Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Top, for your presentation. It's amazing to see how much money that the federal government and President Biden and Congress has been able to provide to all the disadvantaged communities within our country. Kathleen made a comment, and I'm curious to know if it's talking about drinking water and clean school buses. Will we as a unified government qualify to apply for them? Because we're not BPU, we're not the school board. Are those dollars that we can directly apply for since we don't have quote unquote jurisdiction over that matter?
Mayor, did you want to take that one? No, I'm kidding you. I'm kidding.
I don't work for the EPA.
Yeah, I know.
Do your thing.
Yeah, that's a hard question. I appreciate your question. And the short answer is that it's depending upon the funds. And, we go through and we talk about what are the eligible focus groups for these things. And so in some cases, the municipal government may be the eligible entity. In some cases, it may not be. So it would have to be on a case-by-case basis, but we'd be happy to consult with you if you're interested in some particular ones about who might be eligible and when the request for proposal would be coming out. Okay.
Thank you. And I do believe there were more grant opportunities than just buses and water, correct?
Absolutely. There'll be a lot of clean water infrastructure. There'll be lead and copper and pipes funding. There'll be lots of clean air pollution prevention and other opportunities like that. So this is just the start.
Thank you. Commissioner Kane. Okay, you yield. Commissioner Stites.
Commissioner Stites, District 7. Thank you for the presentation. My question is, will this presentation be presented in our other two cities in Wyandotte County, Bonner Springs and Edwardsville?
Right now we're trying to look to reach for communities that we feel like are overburdened,
okay,
and trying to meet with them. But as you can imagine, if you look at all 4 states, there are many, many communities. But if we had a particular invitation, then we would be happy to try and meet that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But if you don't ask, you don't get it, right?
No, not necessarily, but it helps to move you up, right? If we know that you're interested in having that discussion.
Commissioner Townsend, I believe you had your hand up.
No, thank you, Mayor. I did not. Maybe it was another commission.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. And this really isn't for you all, but it's something that we keep aware of. If we, go through and we have a hiring freeze and we don't have the staff to execute, right, these grants or the staff capacity to apply for these grants, we could be leaving some money on the table. And so we need to connect, right, the budget, the organizational culture, right, within the unified government with these particular opportunities. Without us doing that, if we don't have the staff to make it happen, we may not be able to see the fruit of these opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would say, Dwight D. Eisenhower, when you think about the opportunity here to rebuild infrastructure, again, this is a once in a generation opportunity with this level of funding.
Thank you. Talking about the grants, I believe you had a training opportunity as well. Do you want to talk about that?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking about that. And so what we recognize is that that one of our initiatives is to try and reach communities that aren't recent federal grantees, but have an interest and have a need, overburdened communities, underserved communities. And so one of the efforts that we're making is to try and put out a national training that will help folks understand how to go about applying for these grants and being competitive. Understand, because we are making the decisions about who would be selected and who wouldn't. We can't interfere with that part of it, but we can certainly provide training on the front end so that folks have a good idea on how to write a good grant application and how to be competitive. So we're working on that right now. We're also working on training on, once you have your federal grant, how to manage it so that things move along smoothly. So as soon as we have dates on those training opportunities, we'll be sharing those with you. We do one in the region once a year in October, but we're hoping to deliver a larger one much earlier as these opportunities are already starting to come out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Were there any comments from Mr. Chamberlain or Ms. Wolf?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll keep this very short. And the commissioner hit my theme song ahead of me here. I appreciate that. For over a decade, our nation's been talking about renovation of our infrastructure. We all got used to most weeks being infrastructure week. On the Democratic National Committee, with the help of a whole lot of Republicans, we worked to get this something actually accomplished. And within the next 5 years, the bipartisan infrastructure law will will make available $546 billion for development. None of the work to accomplish that will matter if the funds are not applied for, as the gentleman said, if they're not granted, if they're not invested on behalf of our citizens. No good comes to Wyandotte County. And so it's been mentioned that most of this money is available in grant form. I respectfully suggest that during the current budget cycle, this commission provide funding to employ several professional in-house grant writers. That staff can then monitor the funding available from state and federal sources, collaborate with department heads regarding how those funds might be used for the benefit of Wyandotte County residents. I can assure you that many other municipal and state governments have had grant writing teams collaborating with their department heads and their congressional representatives, staffs, to plan fundable projects before the legislation even passed. So we're playing catch up. And I think there's time to do that, but it's nice to be here for once talking about opportunities instead of problems, and I relish that. But after hearing Mr. Tapp make a presentation at an Environmental Sustainability and Green Energy Task Force meeting, I conducted a few simple calculations, and I didn't get them all done because this act is thousands of pages long, and I only got a few. I managed to identify $509 billion out of 546. But I took the population of Wyandotte County as 165,753 people and divided that by the national population and came up with, we've got 5% of 1% of the nation's population. And for the $509 billion of funding that I was able to pull out of the act and identify, if we just got our share, and I think our community is as worthy and as needy as most, that would put into our budget in the next 5 years $256 million. And there's still a lot of money that I missed in there, but I got the bulk of it. I submit that the return on investment of a grant writing shop for this government would be the highest ROI, the best return on investment of anything we could do. And I'd like to see us have somebody that would focus on the opportunities that are available for grant funding and working with department heads to develop proposals to get that. Thank you, folks.
Would you be open to putting in an application?
Don't tempt me.
Hello, my name is Emily Wolf with Metropolitan Energy Center. I'll be really brief, but thank you, commissioners, mayor, and staff. I'm with Metropolitan Energy Center. We've been around since 1983. We provide training, outreach, resources, including funding to transform energy use in the Kansas and Missouri region. So we've worked in the past with thousands of residents, businesses, and municipalities, including the unified government, to promote more efficient homes and buildings, as well as cleaner transportation technology. We've actually worked with the UG in the past, but reinstating what they said, we've worked with a lot of communities, and we're really challenging ourselves to work with as many communities as possible. But we've had a lot of experience with federal grants. It's almost where all our funding comes from, and it is a very overwhelming, time-consuming process. We've actually tried to give the EPA and DOE, working with them, how to give feedback to make those grants more accessible. And so we can't stress enough to have staff to do that. And we are more than happy, regardless if you have the staff, to work with you on those projects or regardless. And I just wanted to give a quick overview really quickly, and I have slides that we don't need to go through. I can just hand them out. Projects we've currently done and previously in Wyandotte County, and some upcoming opportunities. So between 2017 and present, we've worked with UPS at their station near I-35. It's a half a mile from Wyandotte County residential areas. We've worked with them through several DEER grants, as Josh mentioned, to change from several of their diesel tractors to natural gas, which are cleaner and more efficient, cleaner for the neighborhoods. In 2018, we worked with the unified government to provide technical assistance and training as they've deployed cleaner propane buses. We actually had a training with them as well. In 2020 and 2021, we worked with Orange EV. They're right here in Kansas City, the first company in the nation to develop and manufacture and deploy 100% electrical yard trucks. And through our project, we worked with Johnson County Wastewater Department to deploy one at their facility, and actually a distribution center in Edwardsville, Kansas. They've been thrilled with the truck and are going to deploy more. Again, cleaner, quieter, safer for your community, as well as the drivers and technicians. We're having, through a Department of Energy grant with KCMO, we're providing energy code training for local building officials at no cost for continuation credit. Upcoming, again, another great resource. Some additional opportunities for you all to think about. We were recently awarded a $5.2 million award from the U.S. Department of Energy to advance electric transportation in underserved communities. So we're looking at sites right now. Our teams talked to BPU, looking at sites in Wyandotte County. And so stay tuned for more information. We're also part of it's now over, I think, almost 20 state initiative to deploy electric vehicles across the country. Again, just a ton of resources regarding outreach and education. And again, we're here on transportation or buildings, answer any questions, get you pointed in the right direction. But of course, it's always helpful to have additional staff to work with through those grants. But yeah, if you're thinking about a project, we don't have something now, we'll keep it on our radar for future. So please keep us in mind. And if you do have, we'd love to work with your staff regardless, but support everything Josh and Hank shared with you all. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. I just want to thank Ms. Wolf and Mr. Chamberlain, as well as Louise Lynch. Some of you might not know, but we were working on the Environmental Sustainability and Green Task Force. And Mr. Chamberlain and Ms. Wolf and Ms. Lynch brought Mr. Tapp on board. And all the information that you heard today, after I've met with them, along with some of my team members and with the committee that they're trying to put together on behalf of the unified government in Wyandotte County, to address and look at opportunities, like Mr. Chamberlain said, that address some of our emerging needs. We thought that it would be good for you all to hear that, and to hear the need to have grant writers, and to kind of just know that there are a lot of monies as we walk through this budget cycle that can kind of shore up, possibly, if we're awarded these grants, some of our needs that we have as we look at some of our budgetary considerations. So thank you all. Appreciate your time. And you can either connect with them directly, staff or any commissioners. And if you need to get their information, you can get a hold of my executive assistant, Taylor Wash. and she can connect you directly with them. So thank you all so much for that presentation. That takes us to our regular consent agenda. Do any members of the commission or county administrator wish to set aside any item on the regular consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the regular consent agenda will be voted on by one vote. I will entertain a motion for approval of the regular consent agenda. I'm sorry, Commissioner Markley.
I'll make a brief comment and then I'll give you your necessary motion. I just want to note there is an item that is not on this consent agenda to be removed. The work from home policy didn't make it to this agenda. My preference for procedurally would have been for that to be on this agenda, to be pulled publicly and sent back to standing committee if there are questions. Had discussions. I know that's not what happened in this case, but I just think it's more transparent for the public and anybody who is following this item for them to know how it got removed and why it's being sent back. So if you are tracking this item and you're out there watching, it's headed back to the standing committee, move to approve all the items that did make it to the consent agenda.
Second. Bynum.
There is a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Commissioner Davis.
Mayor, can we get a response? Why was the work from home policy removed from the consent agenda?
There were questions that I had that I wanted to send back for further review.
Did you speak with the members of that? Which committee? Administration, Human Services. Did you speak with the members of that committee to kind of let them know what those concerns were?
The ask have been sent back to that committee.
Okay.
Consideration.
Mr. Markley, is that accurate?
I found out from third parties that it was sent back to our committee.
You should have got that information from staff, and that's the direction, and that's my purview. It was sent back with further consideration, so hopefully it'll get to the full commission. That's not a topic of discussion here. Well, I got a motion.
Okay.
And is there a second?
Commissioner Bynum, second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Roll call. And well, is there any discussion? Saying Commissioner Kane.
What now? I'm not sure I like what you said. You know, we worked on that. And what should have happened in my mind was it should have came here. It should have said, all right, we have more information. We've got a lot more information. So we would send it back to the standing committee so they could look at it. So that kind of frustrates me that the way you said that, because it's our committee. We represent that committee and we should know if something's going to be pulled, why it was pulled. And especially since it didn't make it to right here, right now. And I hope we don't do that again.
Well, I can't make it any clearer. The purview of the mayor is to send stuff back to the standing committee if I have questions for further review. That's what was done by staff. It'll be reviewed. It'll be taken up again. Hopefully that action will be allowed to move forward. That is under the charter ordinance.
And I'm sure that it will pass with those modifications. But I've never had that happen. 16, 17 years, I don't know. And I don't like it. You know, that we made a decision and yeah, I've heard the improvements. But it still should have been came to here and then sent back. And I'll never agree with what you did.
That's all right. Those comments are duly noted. We've got to move along. This is about the consent agenda, and I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion in regards to the consent agenda? Commissioner Davis.
I mean, arguably everything is about the consent agenda because it was something that you took off the consent agenda, respectfully, Mayor. And again, I will just stand by my comments. If you're wanting to be successful, things like this it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. It leaves a bad taste. I think I'm safe to speak for everybody else in everybody else's mouth. We have to work together. Thank you.
To answer that question, that's why we have a standing committee. It got sent back to work with the recommendations that are there. There will be no further conversation about what was taken off this consent agenda. I have a motion and a second. I will not entertain any other conversations about what was taken off. Is there any discussion about this current consent agenda before I get a roll call?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, but it is part of the discussion of the consent agenda. And it was something that was taken off, that was unanimously voted by a standing committee, which is half of the commission. And now you have blocked the other half of the commission to have a voice and a say on it. Because Commissioner McKiernan, Commissioner Johnson's not on there, Commissioner Stites is not on there, Commissioner Davis, Commissioner Burroughs and Townsend. I understand if there was questions, but the process is to allow it to go to the consent. Someone pulls it off, gives reasons why to send it back, and it gets a vote and gets sent back. That's the process. It's the process we follow in P and Z, and it's the process we follow here.
I would ask that commissioners read the charter ordinance at your own leisure and understand the auspice and the direction and the privileges that this office of the mayor has. There will be no more discussion. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion about that? Seeing none, clerk, roll call.
Roll call: Burroughs.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Motion, the vote is 9-1. That motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have two related items under our public hearing agenda. Each of these items was fast-tracked from the Economic Development and Finance Standing Committee meeting on Monday, April 4th, chaired by Commissioner Burroughs. Item number 1 is a public hearing on the home field sports facility. Our first public hearing item is regarding the proposed issuance of industrial revenue bonds to finance the cost of acquiring, constructing, improving, and equipping a home field sports building, a multi-use recreational and commercial facility in the amount not to exceed $65 million. I'll ask Catherine Cartar, our Economic Development Director, to make some opening remarks.
Thank you very much. Catherine Carter, Director of Economic Development. I have a very brief presentation, if you'll allow, and this will actually be a presentation that would cover both items, and then obviously there would be 2 separate hearings, but since they are related, figured this was the most expeditious way to do this. So as Mayor Garner mentioned, there are 2 items on the public hearing docket today. One is the home field sports facility industrial revenue bonds. The other is home field baseball complex industrial revenue bonds. So just kind of in terms of process, these were both approved unanimously by the UG Commission as part of the Home Field Development Agreement on January 27th of this year. So this is really just the next step. So you've already seen all of this. You've seen these pilot schedules, et cetera. So nothing has changed from the time that we discussed this a couple months ago, but this is the next step in terms of making this official and moving the process along is this resolution of intent to issue these bonds. So just again, kind of a reminder, since it has been a few months, this, what you're seeing on the screen is the entirety and additional things, but what is part of the home field project. The vast majority of all of this will be on the tax rolls as normal, so paying their full property tax. The exceptions to this were the actual home field components. The reason that we did that is really to provide that predictability. So I'll go into it and show exactly what they'll be paying for the next 10 years. But the idea being that these are fairly unique facilities, and to put them, work with our appraiser's office and others to come up with a schedule that would really provide that predictability, both for the unified government as well as for the developer, to give them that 10-year runway so that they know and can plan for exactly down to the penny what they would be paying kind of as taxes for this next 10 years. So those 3 components are, my mouse here, the home field indoor, which you'll be voting on today, the home field perfect game baseball complex. So those are the two components we'll be voting on today. The third, which will come at a later date, and they're not quite far enough along for us to know exactly what is going to be in there for us to be able to put together a real schedule that would make sense, would be the home field outdoor. So that will be coming down the road. Here's just a look at what the home field indoor complex, where that is located, kind of what that will look like. Here's a rendering. And the perfect game, again, these are not just your average baseball fields, as we've discussed previously. These are incredibly high-tech baseball fields with analytics that are really quite staggering. And as well as part of this, there's a number of things that were put into place, such as actual requirements and guarantees in terms of hotel rooms. And so these two items are huge kind of tourist and kind of a regional draw. So I think this is a good next step for this area. Both of those will be starting construction here very quickly, and plan to be open by at the very latest July of 2024. As I mentioned, both would have a predictable pilot schedule, which would let us know exactly how much they'll be paying over the next 10 years. I did want to just quickly mention the minority women and locally owned business participation goals. As with all projects that the unified government is participating in, there are goals. These are them. But I did want to mention, because this is slightly different from what we do normally, which is we'll have the normal pilot schedule, and then we'll have one that has a larger inflator. So they'd be paying more annually. That is not the case in this project, because the remedy to, if they do not comply, is actually part of the STAR bond procedures. So that's actually a 4% reduction in the STAR bond proceeds, which is quite significant, a large amount of money. And so just wanted to mention that, because that is different from what you normally see, which is kind of the two columns there. So there is certainly a remedy if they fail to comply, but that is not part of the IRBs. That's part of the STAR bond. So this is the pilot schedule. Again, pilot is payment in lieu of taxes. So technically they are not property taxes, but for all intents and purposes, that's the way that we think about them. It is an annual payment that they would pay, since they will not be paying property taxes through the normal route. So for the home field building, that property is currently receiving, you can see here down at the bottom, just under $5,000 annually in taxes currently. Once the home field building is built, then starting in that year one, they will be paying about $241,000, and that will be going up. There's a 1% annual escalator. And so over the course of 10 years, we'll be receiving just over $2.5 million. That is much different from the roughly $50,000 that we would receive if no development were going there. Then year 11, there would be no abatement, no pilot. They would just be on the tax rolls as normal. Then with the home field baseball complex, they are currently, this is the property just south of Providence Hospital. They are paying about $2,600 a year in property taxes. They will be paying, starting again in year one, once it is constructed, starting just over $100,000. Again, that annual escalator will go up to about $117,000. And over the course of 10 years, they'll pay about $1.1 million. Again, if this project did not move forward, we would be getting what they've been paying now for many years, which would be about $25,000 for the entire 10 years. So that is my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions before or after the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. I'll now open the public hearing and ask the clerk if he's received any notification from the public who wish to express their comments in favor of this item.
Mayor, let me make a quick comment here. The Unified Government Clerk received no public comments in favor or in opposition, nor is there anyone left in the lobby, and we are not seeing anyone online, so that helps us expedite that. We have received nothing.
I'll ask the clerk if you've received any notifications from the public who wish to express their comments in opposition.
And once again, Mayor, that's no one.
I'll close the public hearing. Do any members of the commission have any questions or comments?
Commissioner Mike Kane, move for approval.
Commissioner Johnson, second.
Okay. I've got a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call?
Roll call. Burroughs.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Bynum. Okay. Vote is 9-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 2 is the second public hearing item is regarding the proposed issuance of industrial revenue bonds to finance the cost of acquiring, constructing, improving, and equipping a home field baseball complex for the benefit of HFS KCK LLC in the amount not to exceed $45 million. I'll ask Catherine Carter, our Economic Development Director, to make some opening remarks.
So happy to answer any questions. I kind of went through both of these items with my presentation. So if there's any need for clarification, happy to go over some more.
Thank you. I will now open the public hearing and ask clerk if he's received any notification from the public who wish to express their comments in favor of the item.
Mayor, we received nothing.
Have you received any, clerk, have you received any notification from the public who wish to express their comments in opposition?
Mayor, we did not receive any comments in opposition.
I will close the public hearing. Do any
Commissioner
members
Mike
of the
Kane, move for
commission,
approval.
Commissioner Johnson, second.
before we get to the motion for approval and the second, do any other commissioners have any comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Roll call. Burroughs.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have one item under the standing committee's agenda. Item number 1. It's the home field star bond issue. This item was fast tracked from the Economic Development and Finance Standing Committee on Monday, April 4th, chaired by Commissioner Burroughs. I ask Commissioner Burroughs to make some opening remarks.
Mayor, this project has been vetted by the Economic Development Committee as well as the full commission over and over for the last year or so. We believe we have a better contract than what we had in the past. I'm excited about the development, the potential, and the partnership with the kids in the community as well as the ratepayers to be able to utilize the facility. Mayor, there was a unanimous decision to pass it out of committee.
Thank you. Do any members of the commission have any comments or questions?
Commissioner Johnson, move for approval.
Stites, second.
All right, I have a motion for approval and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor, Commissioner Burroughs, at-large District 2, I just want to say that the state has reviewed this project in great detail and are supportive of the Star Bonds project. And I think that's extremely important for the public to know.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor, if I may, did we have the public comment for this particular item? I don't believe we did. I may be wrong.
I don't see that as part of the agenda, but we can open up. Is there anyone, clerk, can you advise?
Seeing no one, we received nothing as well.
For or against?
For or in opposition.
Okay. We'll close that public comment section. We have a motion to approve and a second. No further discussion. Clerk, or roll call, please.
Roll call. Burroughs.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
That takes us to our next item, which is the administrator's agenda. Our only item under the administrator's agenda is a presentation from our Public Works Department on the Stormwater Enterprise Fund. I'll turn it over to Mr. Jeff Fisher, who is the Director of Public Works for the Unified Government.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening. Make quick introductions. We've got Anna White with Black and Beach, who's been with us for the 3 years of engagement, actually 4 years of work. Kathleen Von Achen, of course, our CFO. And Sarah Schaefer is going to help us make the presentations, our lead engineer in the Stormwater Engineering Division. Mayor asked us to make this presentation tonight to revisit sort of the how of the stormwater proposal. We've talked a lot about the why. We've actually talked about the how as well. But to get clarity, he's asked us to revisit the how. Before I get started, I want to speak to a question that has come up a couple of times here recently. Why now? Why the urgency now? Why not wait for grants? Why not wait to see how much grants we'll get before we stabilize the Stormwater Enterprise Fund?
Jeff, it's Melissa Bynum. Why don't you pull your microphone closer?
Okay.
Thank you. And speak up as much as you can.
I'll try. Thank you. So why now? Why the urgency now? Why not wait for grants? See how successful we are with the grants. And as you heard from EPA and others, there is a ton of money out there. I guess my answer would be the urgency's been there for years. We've talked about this for 3 years. The costs are going up. The inequity in the current rate structure has been there since it started and is still there. We got a little bit better this year with your approval of a rate structure change. It was an interim strategy until we could come together and make the changes we really need to make. Even if we had some success with grants, and we'll go into this in a little bit, capital investment, we still wouldn't change the trajectory of the stormwater problem. Grants don't help with O&M. They only help with capital. And we may or may not have success. I hope we do. We'll pursue it. We'll pursue every opportunity. Of course, that's what we're here for. Again, inequity and sustainability. And even if the commission were to approve a new rate structure in April, it still wouldn't take effect until the middle of 23 or early 2024, depending on what option you choose. So those are my answers to those questions. If we go to the next slide. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to our CFO.
So I'll try and speak loud. Tonight we're gonna discuss 2 parts of this presentation. And of course, the objective tonight is really just to provide information. There's no action on your part. It's to provide information so you can mull it over the coming weeks or months. I did want to point out as the CFO, I haven't really spoken in support or on behalf of this stormwater issue, because I've been, behind the scenes. But I did want to point out a couple of things. So the current rate structure, even the one that you approved at the higher level, is not meeting the operating needs of the stormwater enterprise fund. It's an enterprise fund, by the way. So the revenues have to support the costs. And so it's so much so that we're roughly taking $2 million out of the wastewater fund to cover those needs. Now, if no rate adjustment is made, and I'm telling you straight up, if no rate adjustment is made, then, or is adopted, then this fund can no longer be an enterprise fund, and the auditors won't allow it, and then it will have to revert to the general fund. So we can't legally actually have a continuing enterprise fund in a deficit position. By statute, you're just not allowed to do it. So, and not only that, but GASB and GAP don't allow it either. So there are some repercussions to non-action, and that these capital needs aren't going to go away. That you'll always have them. They're there unless you address them. So those are the things I wanted to talk about on this slide. First, we're talking about part one, our system needs. And then secondly, the funding strategies and the implications of those. And so that's how this presentation is split up by those two categories, all right?
So part one, our system needs. We have two separate systems, and how they overlap is where we are considering our combined sewer system. So within that, our sanitary system, we have our wastewater items. And then within our municipal storm system, we have our watershed management and our flooding items. So these two items actually converge still in the unified government. Next slide. Where they converge is where we have regulatory compliance. We have regulatory compliance on both sides, but our regulatory compliance where they converge are where we are required to do items. So that's where we are hearing us talk about the consent decree. So under wastewater, we have the Clean Water Act, our NPDES system, which is focusing on our runoff and our pollutants. And then within our stormwater components, we also have our MS4 for our stormwater. So the costs associated with regulatory is still an item within our rate structures. Next slide, please.
Right, this slide they assigned to me because it has to do with money and cost. So there are cost drivers for both on the wastewater system side and then different ones for the stormwater. So on the stormwater side, there is of course the consent decree mandates and the compliance requirements. And in addition, there are significant capital investments that are required in order to fulfill the consent decree. But there is a higher CPI and O&M cost increases that are built in. So in terms of the sources that pay for those for those costs, of course, it's volume based in terms of the sewer charges based on consumption. The consent decree requires that required the agreement of the EPA, and so the consent decree actually the alignment with the consent decree includes funding capacity that's protected with a cap on the level of sewer services rates. So based on a certain percentage of the medium household income, and it's capped and it's defined for 26 years. So the caps are in place so that even moderately or low income people can afford those increases. All of that's been considered. On the stormwater side, the cost drivers are O&M cost increases to address the backlog of deferred maintenance, capital investments for infrastructure rehab to improve water quality, and significant drainage improvements to mitigate flood and to improve quality. So the primary source for the water utility has been this flat stormwater charge per electric or water account. And the current charge is a residential rate of $6 and a non-residential rate of $4 per month. So, but a cost recovery approach would impact equity and funding capacity if it were adopted. So, so this graph alludes to what I was talking about earlier. And it's the projected fund balance given the existing revenue and the existing service level. So the blue bars are the revenue that we're expecting to collect given our current flat rate of $6 and $14, right? And the green are the expenses that we are expecting. And this does not include any additional capital improvements. This is just the basic. So as you can see that there's a deficit in this fund because the red bar is the fund balance. So the existing revenues will not support even existing services, basic operational costs, emergency capital maintenance, or even the current debt service payments. So there's an annual deficit, and without it being addressed, it continues to grow. So with the additional revenue that's needed, tax revenues will be required in order to continue to fund the stormwater program. And it will have to move over into the general fund as a result.
Next slide.
Okay, earlier this evening, the CFO mentioned a couple of corrections that have been made over the last couple of years between city and county. The stormwater fund and wastewater fund have that same problem. Right now, the stormwater fund is subsidized by wastewater at about $2.5 million a year. That's not good practice. And so this proposal helps the stormwater fund go away from that. Street sweeping is also funded from gas tax. That's not good practice either. The gas tax is the spirit of that. And the intention behind that is to pay for road maintenance. And so we need to move costs out of that gas tax fund so it can do what it's supposed to do. And in this case, move street sweeping into the stormwater fund. And this proposal transitions that as well. And then, as you know, the UG does not have a ditching program. And in order to have a well-functioning system, much of our system is open ditches. And as long as we don't maintain them properly, it's going to impact the streets, or it is impacting the streets. So, we've talked about 20 plus million a year for street preservation. We could spend 20 plus million a year this year. And if we don't do something about the stormwater system, the impact is going to be much less. So the proposal addresses those needs.
Okay, so when we look at the associated costs, the costs associated with operations and maintenance expense that you funded in the past, the average annual spend going back to 2016 is about $1 million a year. The 2022 budget reflects $1.5 million of funding for operating expense, so it has gone up a little bit. But as Jeff just mentioned, this doesn't include these additional enhanced level of service components that he talked about. So it doesn't include the ditching or the street sweeping or moving the stormwater personnel that's currently funded from wastewater over to stormwater. So the blue portion of those bars reflects just your existing level of operating expenses in the budget compared to the red line, which is your historical spend. So when we add that additional level of service O&M to the numbers, that's reflected in the green bars there. So you can see that this additional O&M increases our dollars from 2022 to 2026 from $2 million to $5 million by 2027, sorry. So these additional services make up almost 50% of the total costs over the next 6 years. Plus, we have general escalation for costs as well built into the numbers. So with these additional costs, as I mentioned, we're talking about bringing over the street sweeping from the general fund, taking on the stormwater personnel that's currently funded from water, and starting up that ditching program. The stormwater personnel and the street sweeping should have been in the stormwater budget to begin with. So this is a correction that needs to be made. So the 6-year commitment that we're making here to the O&M, it provides sustainable services. It helps with proactive maintenance. And in addition, it reduces the burden on the general fund and on the wastewater utility. O&M is just one major component when we look at the stormwater program needs. The second component is the capital side, the CMIP. So the capital maintenance improvement program includes costs associated with the 4 areas shown on the chart here. So under the current funding level, capital maintenance associated with regulatory compliance, it's the MS4 permit that Sarah talked about a little bit, that takes the first priority for funding, followed by emergency capital maintenance needs. But the level of funding is not sufficient as it is with O&M. Not all of the emergency capital maintenance is funded, and there's no funding for projects that would provide proactive rehabilitation of the stormwater system or flooding control. There's no other funding source for capital maintenance other than the revenue from rates. So when the revenue is not sufficient to fund all of the capital needs, the system falls into a state of disrepair. So our capital needs over the next 6 years includes 2 components. The first being the capital maintenance that I just talked about. That's funded from rate revenue. That's the capital maintenance that's represented by the green bars on this graph. It's estimated at about $3 million in the 2022 budget. You can see that it is projected to increase a little bit each year. That increase, which we're showing there in the capital maintenance budget, will allow the UG to address a greater number of storm sewer repair and replacement projects that are needed throughout the area. But that can't be funded under the current revenue level. The second component of the CMIP consists of priority capital projects. So these projects total $27.8 million over the 6-year period, as reflected by the blue portion of the bars on that graph. These projects will be debt financed. So the total projected need over the 6-year period for capital is $56 million. That's comprised of the capital maintenance and these priority capital projects. So Sarah's going to provide a little more information about those priority projects.
So when we start to talk about funding our information, we need to understand what do we need to put into our plan. So what do we need to do to know what our issues are? And so with a watershed-based stormwater master plan, our first phase is our deficiency study. So phase 1 overall took a look at our 50 plus basins within our MS4 permit. There was 87 individual areas of impairment that met that deficiency projection. From there, we focused. So we focused on 40 areas and investigated. They all were within 7 watersheds. So over almost half were within these 7 specific watersheds, which resulted in 12 priority capital projects identified within this study at $140 million. So from that particular study, next slide, please. We projected into the priority capital projects. So of those 12, 3 were moved forward into our projected financial plan. An additional item in the projected plan is our improvements. So there's stormwater renewal and replacement. And then there's our 3 green infrastructure projects, which supports our regulatory compliance within our CSO consent decree. Next slide.
So the CMIP funding, the current funding approach is has very limited GO bonds issued on an annual basis, especially going forward. Roughly, I mean, it's about 100,000 a year, if that, and very limited annual cash financing. So the capital program funding capacity is severely constrained. With the proposed approach, we would have a multi-layer of funding with low interest WIFIA and SRF loans of $27.8 million, a little bit of GO bonds at $600,000, and cash financing for various capital programs at $28.6 million. So it's a good mix. It keeps the borrowing costs low, and it addresses our capital funding needs. The total is $56 million with the addition of the rates over that period, which is 2022 through 2027. The projected annual debt service, we're presenting this so that you can see the difference between just issuing GO bonds compared to using the low-cost WIPIA SRF approach. So with the use of the GO bonds, we would have an annual debt service payment of roughly $3.9 million per year and an average annual debt service payment of $3.1 million. If we were to use the lower cost WIPIA and SRF loans, that annual debt service payment, or the max annual debt service payment, would drop from 3.9 to 3.3 million, and the average annual debt service payment would drop from 3.1 million using GO bonds to 2.5 million. So that is the approach that we're recommending with the application of the WIFIA. The terms of the WIFIA and SRF loans are provided here so that you can see the specifics of what we're talking about. On the WIFIA side, it's roughly 14.6 or $7 million in the par amount for the with the WIFIA loans over that 5-year period. The net proceeds would be 13.7. They are tax exempt. The annual interest rate is 1.38%, which if we issue GO bonds, it would roughly be 3.5%. The other benefit of the WIFIA low-cost borrowing is that we get to defer. We get 5 years after the completion or construction of the projects. We can wait before we start making debt service payments, and so that helps for the system to financially generate, good cash flow in the future. The final stated maturity would be 2062, and capitalized interest on the bonds would go through 2032. So by entering into the WIFIA loan, the other benefit, which isn't mentioned here, is that we actually lock in the interest rate, which right now the interest rates are really low, and we're anticipating that they are going to rise. So by doing it now, we would lock in that lower interest rate that we anticipate in the future will be higher. So on the SRF, it's a similarly low-cost loan. It would serve as the match for the WIFIA loan, and that's through the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, and here are their terms too. So, Anna, go ahead.
Okay, so we've covered the two major program needs for stormwater utility: operations and maintenance and capital maintenance. And Kathleen presented how those 7 priority projects that are part of the capital maintenance will be funded. So Kathleen showed a graph similar to this at the very beginning, and it indicated that the current revenue from the stormwater fee will not cover even just the basic operating and capital needs. So those costs in her slide, they didn't include the street sweeping or the ditching or the stormwater personnel that's in wastewater, and it didn't include the priority capital projects. So it only included the very basic services being provided to the community. And even then, the current stormwater fee revenue does not provide enough funding. So this is the updated graph that brings in that enhanced O&M and the debt service for those additional capital projects. You can see that the expenses increase significantly in 2024 and then continuing to go up from there. So 2024 is the last year phasing in the street sweeping. It's phased in over 3 years. The last year for phasing in the ditching program, which is also 3 years. So those will be fully funded at that point. But it's the first year of phasing in the stormwater personnel that's currently funded from wastewater, and that's a 5-year phase in. So you do see the cost continuing to increase as we keep phasing in that enhanced level of O&M. So 2024 is also the first year that the cash-funded capital maintenance will be fully funded. So the blue bars represent the level of revenue that will allow the stormwater utility to meet these operating and capital needs, and gradually bring up the fund balance to meet the target requirement of 90 days of cash on hand by 2026. So what's the reason for this whole stormwater rate transition initiative? Two things. The first is the funding. We need to have adequate funding, and we need to have the ability to leverage more funding. The second is equity. Even in the absence of any additional funding, we need equity in the rate structure. So the current revenue recovery approach was set many years ago. As Kathleen explained, it's a flat fee for each water or electric account. It doesn't reflect any correlation between a property's stormwater contribution and what the property is charged. So if you look at the images on the right side of the slide, the big box store and the medical center currently pay $14 a month, but you can see how much impervious area they have. The red is the buildings, the yellow is the parking lot, the sidewalks, the private roads. All of that is contributing runoff. You can see in the case of the medical center, there's a few buildings, but there's a lot of parking lots. So just between the big box store and the medical center, there's a lot of diversity in these two parcels in terms of the building footprint and other hard surfaces. They're both paying $14 a month right now. That's not equitable. And then if we look at the residents, that's paying $6 a month right now. This sample residence has about 2,400 square feet of impervious area. It's the sum of the red and the yellow shading. The big box store has 410,000 square feet of impervious area. The medical center has over 1 million square feet of impervious area. That's 2.5 times as much impervious area as the big box store. That's over 400 times as much impervious area over the residential property, but yet this medical center would only pays 2 times what the residential parcel pays right now. That's not fair. So this is where we can see there's a lot of inequity in your current rate structure. So now let's look at some more numbers. Residential properties make up only 35% of the impervious area, but they contribute 78% of the revenue under the existing rates, because 90% of the utility accounts and parcels are residential customers. Out of the total number of parcels in the service area, residential and non-residential combined, 88% of those parcels have less than 5,000 square feet of impervious area. That makes sense because almost 90% of the parcels are residential, but you can see that 5% of those 88% are non-residential properties that also have less than 5,000 square feet of impervious area. So what's the significance of this? These are 57,000 parcels, 88%, that are paying more than their fair share under the current rate structure. That's why we're saying there's an equity problem. So there's some very tangible benefits if we move to an impervious area-based rate. As we discussed, having a flat charge is low on equity. If you look at the spectrum here, it's on the far left. It's the lowest you can get in terms of equity. Moving to individually calculated is much more equitable. So with the rate transition, what we're trying to do is help the UG move to the right side of the spectrum for higher equitable revenue recovery. You can go all the way to individually calculated. You can go to the middle, which includes a tiered rate structure. Both of them have higher equity than your current rate structure. So most stormwater utilities have an individually calculated stormwater fee. There's about 2,000 user fee funded stormwater utilities in the US. About 90% of those use impervious area as the basis for the rates. A significant portion of those programs do what I just mentioned. They have an individually calculated stormwater charge. And that's because it's the most equitable way to recover costs, because the big box stores and the warehouses and the medical centers with the large amount of impervious area contribute the significant runoff. And with a user fee, there needs to be a reasonable relationship between what the customer is charged and the demand that they place on the system. So for that reason, most utilities have an individually calculated charge. Another benefit is when you have an individually calculated charge, you can offer stormwater credits. So if a non-residential parcel manages stormwater on site, then they can be given a stormwater fee credit that reduces their monthly fee. So they have a form of control over how much they pay each month for stormwater. That's not possible when you have a flat fee rate structure. So an impervious area-based rate brings not only equity, it brings funding adequacy, it also brings the ability to offer credits. So if we maintained the existing rate structure, the separate flat fee for residential and non-residential, to fund the proposed financial plan that I showed to you, this is what the existing fees would need to increase to in 2024 and 2025. So 92% of your customers would be paying almost $14 a month by 2025. The national median monthly stormwater fee for residential customers is $6. So by 2025, UG residents would be paying almost 2.3 times the national median. As costs continue to increase and rates continue to increase, this disproportionate cost recovery from the residential customers will just continue to grow. Yes.
Commissioner Bynum.
I'm sorry. I'm tracking until you said national median monthly residential stormwater is $6, because on the previous slide, I thought you said most utilities pay or calculate on the individual square foot basis. And those things don't go together in my head.
Well, so if you look at, so Black and Veatch does a stormwater survey on a regular basis. As part of that survey, what we do is collect the rates and fees for all of the participants in the survey for residential and non-residential. And we calculate what the typical stormwater bill is based on what the respondent indicates is the average impervious area for a residential customer. And so from that collection of what the typical residential monthly charge is, we determine the median, and that median is $6 a month.
But are you saying, I'm sorry, are you saying that if that's the case, then the per square foot cost on residential must be pretty low to get to $6 a month median?
It varies. I mean, it depends on not every single respondent has an individually calculated fee. Some of them do have a flat fee. But I guess the cost per a unit of impervious area, it just depends. Again, we have, the high range, what we see, for instance, like Portland, Oregon, the residential fee is around $25 a month. And then we see some where the residential fee is around $1 a month. Those aren't utilities that use individually calculated. That's a utility that they have a flat fee of $1 a month. So, the median is just the mix of all of those different examples, and it comes out to about $6 a month.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so in an effort to move from low equity to higher equity, the first alternative rate structure that we looked at is a flat fee for all residential customers and a tiered rate structure for all non-residential customers. So all residential customers will continue to pay the flat fee regardless of the amount of impervious area that each parcel has, But because we'll be recovering more revenue from the non-residential customers, the residential charge will be more aligned with the national median, as you can see there. So all non-residential customers would pay based on their amount of impervious area, and the monthly fee would depend on which impervious area tier they fit into based on the amount of their impervious area. So this option allows the UG to move to from a level of low equity recovery to a moderate level by incorporating the non-residential tiers based on impervious area. The second alternative moves us.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. On that last slide, and Jeff, you've gone through this so many times, but I have to ask this question. Why does it jump so much from tier 4 to tier 5? I mean, all the other tiers, you can see a gradual increase. But then when we get to over 50,000 square feet, now we've made a massive jump. This is on a per month basis, right?
Yes.
Okay. So why such a large jump?
Because there are a significant number of properties that they're not just at the 50,000 square foot level. They're like the medical center. They're at 1 million square feet. We have ones that are much larger than that. So that fifth tier is capturing 50,000 and all the way up to parcels that have 2 or 3 million square feet. So unfortunately, that's what happens when you group them into tiers. As I know that you know, there's kind of what we'd say winners and losers depending on what edge of that tier you're on. If you're at the bottom, you're paying a lot more than somebody who's just at the top of the one below. The same way if you're at the top of that. So that, that fifth tier, the rate there is designed to capture the impervious area for parcels going all the way up to those that have 2, 3 million.
Is how the numbers shake out, so to speak.
Yes.
From the low to the high, you kind of mishmash a number in the middle somewhere.
Yes.
Roughly. Okay.
Commissioner Kane.
Thank you, Mayor. Here's my fear. There's a lot of churches that couldn't afford $325 a month. There's the amount of money that JUCO will have to pay. They said he'd have to let somebody go. And then Piper just passed a new school bond issue, and they're already tapped out. And now we're going to give them another expense of $325 a month. I mean, and I'm Commissioner Johnson. Yeah. That's, do any of the other municipalities make them jump that much?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay, well then we need an answer. What happens in the surrounding municipalities when you get to that? Well, matter of fact, get them all. Everything we got right here, get with the surrounding municipalities and come back and tell us what it is.
So we have done benchmarking on just the Kansas City Metro, and Topeka and Wichita were included, that in Lawrence. All of those communities, I actually have it with me. I brought it just in case. All but one, which is Bonner Springs, Kansas City, Missouri, Lawrence, Lenexa, Overland Park, Shawnee, Topeka, Wichita, all are their stormwater rate is individually calculated. Right. So I don't have any examples of tiers in the metro area because that's not a rate structure that we see here.
Yeah, we're getting ready to move on to the individually calculated if we might finish the presentation. And
Commissioner Stites.
Commissioner Stites, District 7. So I see that we've got 5 tiers. So from 50,000 square feet up to 1 million square feet is one rate. How come there can't be 10 tiers?
There can be. We had a 13-tier option at one point. We've been there. We realized what was wrong with that option, and we've come back down again.
Well, I mean, I do find it very interesting that the person that has 50,200 square feet is paying the same as somebody that has 1 million square feet.
Yes.
Mhm.
We've actually, in fact, been through 30 or 40 iterations of this. Some commissioners might remember. That was one of them.
We should hear the other one. It will come back at it. We'll come back at you.
So this section, the second option moves us all the way over to the far right, from moderate equity to high equity. That's moving us to the individually calculated rate structure. So under this option, all customers pay the same base rate, and they all pay the same rate per 500 square feet of impervious area. So all the properties are assessed charges that align with their impervious area, and therefore this provides the highest level of equity in terms of cost recovery, since each parcel's monthly charge is directly related to the amount of its impervious area.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about, what would work under the proposal and what wouldn't work. And, we are in this proposal attempting to make corrections, budgetary corrections. We're attempting to start up a ditching program. We're making a proposal that puts the UG in a better position to take advantage of grant opportunities. As we've mentioned, some of those grant opportunities require a match. And as the CFO has pointed out, this fund is not healthy enough to provide a match. And this proposal includes lightening the burden on the wastewater fund that is under a consent decree. Every dollar in that wastewater fund counts, and the quicker we can get stormwater to operate on its own without that subsidy, the better off both those funds will be. The sweeping program that's now funded by the gas tax, which is a part of the general fund, would now be funded by stormwater where it should be, and helping the general fund. So we believe these are good practices. We believe these are sustainable and equitable. Are they perfect? No. I wish somebody would propose a perfect proposal. But this is through 30 or 40 iterations in 3 years of engagement. This is what we believe is the best for the UG. Next slide.
So we've been able to hear about the equitable and adequate fund. How do we get there? Through the various rate options. And we've learned that fund then gives us a balance of identifying our needs, studying those needs, creating shovel-ready projects from those needs, and then constructing those needs to our community. So this next layer is how we become strategic in the use of those funds. So how do we take that $1 and turn it into $2, $3, $4 for our community? And that's through various funding source opportunities. So our funding sources are basically within 3 big buckets. We have programming opportunities, we have grant opportunities, and we have earmarks. So programming opportunities, those are from basically feasibility all the way through construction in different high need areas that meet certain criteria for these different programs, such as FEMA, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and KDHE. Grant opportunities. We heard about different grant opportunities from specifically the EPA that may be included in the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act. We have grants that come in from MARC, from Kansas State, and then we have our earmarks, such as what's within the omnibus bill. So our rate structure transition provides us an opportunity to be strategic with dollars that are within our fund by creating strong programs with known projects and an identified CIP schedule. From there, we can take a look at opportunities as they come in and pair them up and be strategic and be very competitive with those applications. We've been able to see a lot of grants come in very quickly. We've seen the NOAA, the NASA, the BASE, the EDA, MARCs various, I think you just had a presentation from Kathleen just the other day on all these various grants that we've been chasing. And I believe that we've all been in meetings where we wanted to go after specific grants, but we may not have had a shovel-ready project, or we may not have had an identified need in this specific crucial area. And by supporting a equitable and adequate fund, you're supporting an equitable, adequate investigation through our entire community for all of these particular supplemental fundings. A reminder, as Jeff mentioned in the beginning, supplemental fundings, they cannot replace dedicated fundings. So we really do need to focus on the equitable, adequate fund in order to be very effective at the strategy of turning those dollars into multiple dollars. So all supplemental funding sources are competitive. We've had a few supplemental fundings come in that may have been trickled into us and they're utilized. They're just various new opportunities, but typical traditional supplemental fundings are very competitive, whether at the local, the state, or the federal level. Next slide.
Okay, well, in conclusion, it does seem like that, doesn't it? This community has a large infrastructure problem. We have subcommittees that have been working for 9 months to develop outcomes and strategies for all classes of infrastructure, facilities, wastewater, stormwater, roads, bridges. And so we're here to talk about stormwater tonight. And this category also has a big problem. And we do need to build in equity. Folks are paying this every month already. And the enterprise funds doing very little with it. They're not getting value for what they're paying. There's inequity in the rate structure. It's not sustainable, as the CFO pointed out. On the track it's on now, the UG would need to move it into the general fund and taxes would begin to pay for stormwater needs. So we believe after the 3 years of engagement, after the 30 or 40 iterations, we have something that's viable. And so we hope that we've provided some clarity and we're here to entertain any questions you have.
Thank you. We're going to open up for questions. Commissioner Bynum was first.
Thanks. I'm just going to put this on the table. Obviously, we won't solve it tonight. I think we all agree we are looking for more equity than the current, or in my case, the current tiered proposal. What I'm wondering is why can we not revisit the notion of a different rate for a church, school, nonprofit? Is there some reason why we can't revisit that part of what we're talking about? Because we know that Target, for example, in Overland Park, knows what their stormwater fee is. It's quite substantial. And it's a cost of doing business in Overland Park. So we have an awareness that those retailers accept the stormwater fee as a cost of doing business in the communities where they locate. But to Commissioner Kane's point, we have schools, churches, nonprofit institutions that own their own buildings that cannot bear the burden of much more than they bear right now. And I just wonder why we can't revisit that. Our appraiser and tax folks know, because they just told us a month ago, how many of our parcels are nonprofit. And it's not that many. So I just wonder, I'm just putting it on the table so that we can move the discussion maybe forward toward what you're asking us for in a way that maybe we can tolerate a little bit more. Thanks.
Commissioner Davis.
I ironically remember watching this exact meeting when Commissioner McKiernan, I know. I'm like, this is deja vu. It went from, oh yeah. Just, I was sitting, in my living room.
This is a new and improved.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Can you all go to slide 27?
Is that 20?
One more, yeah.
Okay. So I think that this is just my perspective. If we're trying to get equity, I think this is the best option. It's not popular. It's not sexy. Yes, it is going to mean more, but if this is not fixed, we will have more dire consequences if we do not act upon it. I do have a question though, regarding the increase in the, a certain dollar amount per impervious area. Does it cap at some point, or is there some equation, Jeff or anyone else? Is there like an equation or something that's put in there that says each year it's going to go up, and then does it kind of like plateau? Does it kind of flat and kind of keep that rate, or does it keep going?
So as we talked about, we're phasing in, right, the ditching program, the street sweeping, the stormwater personnel from wastewater. We have these 7 priority projects that are debt financed. So costs are going to continue to go up year after year. Plus, we just have cost escalation as well with our basic O&M expenses. We will get to a point, and that's kind of what Kathleen was showing a little bit with those graphs in the debt service. We kind of hit that max debt service when the WIFIA loan comes in and we have the SRF, and then it starts going down from there. That gives us an opportunity then to start just layering on debt that's staying at that max amount, and that'll keep it steady. If we get our O&M fully funded, we get the programs in there that we need, then that will be pretty steady going forward, other than just inflation, associated with, right, inflation increases. So there will be a point, at some point, right, when everything is fully funded and it's moving forward, but it's going to take a little while to get there because we are phasing in a lot of this.
Gotcha. And to Commissioner Bynum's point, I would entertain looking at different categories, but I would also caution that because let's say we have a church, they have a different rate, the rate's not the same, but they're still, right, when it comes to that impervious surface, right, much larger, and therefore causing, right, services to be used, right, a substantial amount compared to others. But I'm for, at the very least, starting the conversation here and then working from, how do we account for other entities that may not be able to pay, right, that increase. Thank you.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Jeff and staff. I can't tell you what number this is for the stormwater. I know when I came onto the commission, I don't remember who it was, but someone said, have fun. 3 years later, we're here. Still here. I agree with both Commissioner Davis and Commissioner Bynum. If we can find a way to, what this has been colloquially, individually calculated, called the McKiernan plan in the past, because you were advocating for this. But if we can find a way of, I support the individually calculated. I think it's the most equitable. It may take more staff, more manpower to make it happen, and might have to change some processes. But in the end, we're going to get our return on investment the most, I think. but also looking at how can we combine that categorization, maybe to call it. I'm sure there might be some way, but if that's a way we can look at it, but I can just tell you right tonight, I support the individually calculated. I think it's long overdue, and I think we need to continue moving forward. We all know what needs to get done. You know, all of our subcommittees have been working hard to find solutions and strategies and outcomes to our infrastructure problems. And this is just one step. This is just one step forward that we can get towards those outcomes and strategies. So, yeah, individually calculated is what I'd support. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, Jeff, I thank you for just being persistent, and you continue to keep this in front of us. And I'm going to admit tonight, you wore me out. But I do think, and I'm trying to choose my words very carefully. I do think that this is likely the best way to move forward. I am duty bound to agree with Commissioner Bynum with the consideration of nonprofit organizations. Reasons that are pretty clear. But in terms of equity, and I don't know what kind of pushback we're going to get from, some of our larger institutions. I think we've already endured some of that, but I suspect that we would likely hear from them. I don't know that for sure, but I do agree with the fact that this is likely the best way to go. And if there's some way in your infinite wisdom that you can figure out how to help those poor nonprofit organizations, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Markley.
Well, you all know where I stand on this issue, so I won't belabor the point. I'm happy to find that more people are, it sounds like, on board. And Commissioner Johnson, I will still come plant at your church. That's still on the table.
We will look at models to see what others have done with that. And certainly can have that conversation if you desire. So we'll be ready for that.
Thank you. Are there any more comments, or Commissioner Johnson?
And I know I do want to appreciate Commissioner McKiernan, who has put in his share of time on this as well. Yes, I do appreciate the work that he's done. And finally, I just want to acknowledge that Commissioner Townsend has her hand raised, Mayor.
Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson and Mayor. Good evening to the staff that's made this very important presentation. Again, I would like to see the slide. I don't remember which one, just briefly, that showed residences. I remember numbers in the $10 range plus. And just a quick, no, it wasn't that one. Not that one. It was, again, based more on the amount of impervious surface, but it was more about $10, it seemed like, not that one.
So this slide here that I have up, if you look at the medium residential, that's about 2,500 square feet, we do get up to the $10 range by 2026.
The slide I'm talking about showed about $10 earlier, but it also capped at about 10 or 11, it seemed like. Not that one.
That's not.
Those are the only three slides that we've shown raised,
Okay.
Commissioner.
I tell you what, I'll just look at it again. Let me just say this. I'm glad to see we're moving forward. This is such a big issue and we have to do something. It cannot be left where we currently are. So we have to do something. I'll just look at it again in light of day. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we close, are there any more comments from any commissioners? Just real quick, I believe, you can go back to slide 27. I support that as well. And you know, most of the Commissioner Davis, Ramirez, Johnson, and I think Bynum, pretty much everybody, if you want to call it the McKiernan plan. I believe the reason why, when you all talked to me, I think last week about this, you noted that was most equitable, but one of you mentioned that, because I asked the question, what was the standard across the country? And I believe someone told me over 90 plus of communities use this model here. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Can you talk to that for our commission, please?
Right, and I think we had that. That was part of this slide here. Out of the 2,000, approximately 2,000 stormwater utilities that have a user fee majority are based on impervious area, and the majority of those use the individually calculated. Again, because it is the most equitable and because it allows you to have that credit program that will allow the non-residential property owners the opportunity to have a little more control over their monthly fee if they can help manage some of that stormwater runoff on site. So that is, yes, the most common stormwater user fee.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for the present. Commissioner Bynum?
I apologize, but to that point, if we go the route of the per square foot, and we've got a developer who has complied with all of our planning and zoning and development review requirements that have required stormwater mitigation, then we can be assured that to those folks, we're going to come back around and say, we know that you did it because we made you, and we're going to offer you the credits.
Yeah, not quite. The discussions that we've had on setting the policy for the credit program would require that you go above and beyond the requirements. So you don't get a credit for doing what you're supposed to do. You get a credit for going beyond that.
Okay. I bring it up because that is something that has been said to me by developers is, I did A, B, and C, you made me do that. And so I've done those things. And I see that Commissioner Burroughs has his hand up. Mayor, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Burroughs?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one question. Are retention ponds considered part of this stormwater management?
Those are typically required under UG standards.
Is it part of the credit program?
Based on what was just described, it would not be.
So we have.
Because it's required.
So we have a number of retention ponds that are mandated in every development that get overgrown and become a vermin infested water pool in most of the developments around our community. We mandate those, but we don't give credits for them. I'm just kind of curious, besides native grasses and maybe some additional foliage that is required for stormwater and maybe underground irrigation collection pools. Just kind of curious to what benefit we get from a retention pond that then becomes a community, I don't want to call it an asset because it's not an asset. It's really more of a problem for the community because they get full of trash and they're not clean. We have a number of them being proposed around the community, and it's not a secret that I am not a fan of retention ponds because of the fact that what I've just stated has occurred more often than not. I know something needs to be done. We are in the business of providing services. All people will benefit. All people should pay. Thank you, Mayor.
So
you're welcome.
This is Sarah Schaefer, and I can at least explain a little bit on how this proposed option with credits may change the direction of choices that developers have. So retention ponds are a choice in order to meet the design criteria, but it's not a requirement to meet the design criteria. There's always options on how to get to the volume of water that needs to be retained, detained, or managed on a site. So if there's a choice by a developer to change the way that they manage their water, that then meets the criteria within the credit system, that is an option that they may exercise. Most options are related to cost, and some options that go into the credit system may cost more than a retention pond. So it's a balance of that particular developer's economic investment and overall impact. So I hope that helps explain a little bit on what the developers' options may be and their overall way to exercise their ability to gain credits. But overall, our minimum standards allow us to understand our stormwater impacts to our assets. It allows us to have known amounts that we can then project into our CMIP and allows us to understand our needs for that maintenance. Commissioner Bynum, I think you may have asked about how does some of those calculations happen. Sometimes in other communities, they do have a zero runoff policy where you can't let anything leave your site. And that would ultimately result the way that our system, our design criteria would maybe be a lot of credit type of a thing. If they can demonstrate that they're retaining and detaining everything that they have on site, as well as they're creating on site, that could be something. But again, it all comes down to the monetary benefit of that particular developer and the ability that their land can support that.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It was well thought out, and I think you got a little direction, administrator and staff, on kind of the will of the commission in that regard, as far as the rate structure at least. The good news is that Commissioner Kane is going to be attending a meeting here in short order dealing with infrastructure, and I think it's they're getting ready to prepare to release some funds from the federal government to the state, and we'll see how much we get to hopefully help address some of these issues. So hopefully that'll come in very short order with all the needs that we have. This meeting will be our last meeting here on April 28th. We will reconvene back in our normal commission chambers. So we should all be excited for that. And thank everybody that's been in attendance. We are now adjourned. Thank you.